The first time Elara died, the kingdom called her a monster. They said she poisoned the crown prince. They said she tried to steal the throne. They said she was so jealous of her perfect stepsister that she would rather destroy the royal family than lose, and everyone believed it. The nobles whispered her name like it was poison. Her father refused to look at her. The prince stared at her with cold disappointment, and her stepsister Celeste stood in the courtroom with trembling hands and tear-filled eyes. The perfect victim, the innocent angel, the girl everyone wanted to protect. Elara stood in chains, bruised, exhausted, and completely alone. She tried to speak. She tried to explain. But every time she opened her mouth, someone called it another lie. Then Celeste stepped forward. Her voice was soft. Her tears were beautiful. And she said, "Sister, I only wish you had chosen kindness." That was when Elara finally understood. Celeste was not crying because she was hurt. She was crying because she had won. The poison, the witnesses, the letters, the servant who accused her. All of it had been arranged. Elara had not been defeated by the law. She had been defeated by a story where Celeste was the saint, and Elara was the villainess everyone already wanted to hate. When the judge declared her guilty, the courtroom erupted with approval. The prince looked away. Her father lowered his head. Celeste covered her mouth, pretending to sob. And Elara smiled for the first time that day. Because if she had to die as the villainess, then, in another life, she would become one properly. The blade fell, but death was not the end. It was the beginning of the rewrite. Elara opened her eyes 3 years in the past, back in her bedroom, back before the trial, back before the poison, back before Celeste stole her name, her future, and her life. For a moment she could not breathe. Then she looked down at her hands. No chains, no blood, no courtroom. On her desk sat an unopened invitation to the royal tea party, the same tea party where the first rumor had begun. In her first life, she had gone there angry. She had argued with Celeste. She had spilled wine on a noble girl. She had given them exactly the image they wanted. A jealous, unstable villainess. This time, Elara burned the invitation over a candle flame. Then she rang the bell for her maid. "Bring me every guest list from the last 3 royal events," she said. The maid blinked. "My lady?" Elara smiled. "If they want a villainess, I should at least understand the stage." From that day on, Elara stopped chasing love. She stopped begging for her father's approval. She stopped trying to prove she was kinder than Celeste. Because kindness had never saved her. Information would. In the first life, Celeste had defeated her with whispers. In this life, Elara would answer with evidence. She started with the servants, not by threatening them, not by shouting, but by listening. A kitchen maid whose brother owed money, a coachman who knew which nobles visited the palace after midnight, a clerk who copied royal invitations, a seamstress who heard everything because noble ladies forgot workers had ears. Elara paid debts, sent medicine, offered protection, and slowly, quietly, the house that once watched her fall began to speak. The first trap came 2 weeks later. Celeste invited Elara to breakfast. The table was perfect. Fresh fruit, silver plates, a porcelain teacup placed beside Elara's hand. In the first life, Celeste had used that breakfast to begin the rumors. She had accused Elara of jealousy. Elara had snapped. The cup had shattered. And by noon, every noble house was saying Elara had tried to attack her poor sister. This time Elara sat down calmly. Celeste smiled across the table. "Sister, you look tired," she said. "Were you up all night worrying about the prince again?" The servants paused. Her father glanced over his newspaper. Celeste was waiting for anger. So Elara gave her concern. "You're right," Elara said gently. "I barely slept." Celeste's smile brightened. Then Elara continued. "I was worried about you." The room went quiet. Celeste blinked. Elara placed a folded note on the table. "One of your maids was seen leaving the west gate after midnight. I feared someone might be threatening you." Celeste's face changed for less than a second, but Elara saw it. Her father lowered the newspaper. "What maid?" Elara looked down at her tea. "I'm sure it is nothing." Celeste would never hide anything from the family. For the first time, Celeste had no tears ready. That was Elara's first victory. Not loud, not dramatic, but clean. She had not defended herself. She had made Celeste defend her own shadow. After that, Elara changed everything. At tea parties, she no longer fought insults. She redirected them. When a noble girl asked if she was jealous of Celeste, Elara smiled and said, "Jealousy is such an ugly thing. It can make people forge letters, bribe servants, even poison tea." The girl laughed nervously. Celeste stopped laughing entirely. When the prince ignored Elara at a banquet, she did not chase him. She discussed border taxes with his advisor. When her father praised Celeste for charity work, Elara quietly donated to the orphanage Celeste had only visited for portraits. Every move was small. Every move looked innocent. But together, they created a new version of Elara, not the screaming villainess, not the jealous sister, a calm woman with clean gloves and dangerous eyes. And the court began to notice. That was when Celeste became desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. At the next royal tea party, the crown prince suddenly collapsed. The room exploded into panic. A silver cup rolled across the floor. A maid screamed. Celeste rushed forward, crying the exact same tears Elara remembered from her first life. Then someone shouted, "Lady Elara poured the tea." Every eye turned toward her. The old story had returned. The poison. The accusation. The perfect victim. Only this time, Elara had been waiting for it. She raised both hands, calmly. "I did not pour the prince's tea," she said. Celeste's voice trembled. "But I saw you near the table." Elara nodded. "You did." Then she turned toward the royal guard, "Which is why I asked your captain to watch the tea table before the party began." Celeste froze. The guard captain stepped forward. In his hand was a small glass vial. "We found this hidden in the sleeve of Lady Celeste's maid." Celeste's tears stopped. Not slowly. Instantly. The room saw it. For the first time, the angel forgot to act. Elara stepped closer. "In my last life, I tried to prove I was innocent after everyone had already decided I was guilty." Her voice was quiet. "But this time, I decided to prove the crime before it happened." The prince, pale but alive, looked at her with horror and understanding. Elara did not look back at him. He was no longer the prize. He was only one more witness. Celeste tried to cry again. She tried to say her maid had acted alone. She tried to reach for their father, but doubt had already entered the room. And doubt is fatal to a saint, because saints only survive when everyone believes the halo. The investigation lasted 3 days. By the end of it, the forged letters were found. The bribed servants confessed. The missing poison records were uncovered. And the same courtroom that once condemned Elara now forced Celeste to kneel. Elara stood where Celeste had once stood. Clean, silent, untouchable. Her father begged Elara to forgive her sister quietly for the family's reputation. The prince apologized and asked for another chance. The nobles whispered that they had always suspected Celeste. Elara almost laughed, because cowards always rewrite their memories after power changes hands. Celeste looked up from the courtroom floor. Her voice shook. "Sister, please, you know I was scared." Elara walked closer. In her first life, those words would have broken her. She had wanted family, love, acceptance. But the girl who wanted those things had died beneath a blade. Elara leaned down, close enough that only Celeste could hear. "Thank you," she whispered. Celeste stared at her. Elara smiled. "For being so easy to expose." The verdict was announced before sunset. Celeste was stripped of her title. Her allies were arrested. Her angelic portrait was removed from the family hall. And Elara walked out of the courtroom without looking back. The kingdom would still call her dangerous. They would still whisper. They would still wonder if she had become the villainess after all. But Elara no longer cared, because in her first life, she had died trying to be understood. In her second life, she learned something far more useful. You do not need everyone to love you. You only need your enemies to fear telling lies in your presence. And from that day forward, no one in the kingdom ever called Celeste an angel again. They called Elara the woman who rewrote her own trial. But Elara knew the truth. She had not rewritten the trial.